Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, our summer backlog attack continues into week 3 with Armored Core 3 and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Marvel's Spider-Man.
Yes. That's official titling, I think. I was trying to Google the Spider-Man Miles Morales game, and I kept getting Spider-Verse hits. So
kept getting that other Spider-Man.
The other Spider-Man, yeah. The Spider-Men. So if I had found that if I put in Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, somehow it knew that I was looking for video game things.
That's funny that he is just that associated with the video game now. Although, like you said, he was in Spider-Verse, so yeah, he's just having his 15 minutes.
Yeah. I kept sort of bouncing back and forth because I've seen the first Spider-Verse movie, but not the newer one yet. And Miles is in that too. It's really, I've heard that as well. Yeah, I'm excited. It's streaming now, so I do want to catch up with it. But I really like that first movie. I keep like in my brain was like, didn't this character be his uncle? And shouldn't this person look like this? And the voice actor's different. And I was like, no, wait, different Miles Morales. Right. Yes. To keep them separate in my brain.
Well, people were so upset that Peter Parker in the first game didn't look exactly like, what's his name? Tom Holland.
Mm.
And then, did they like changed him? So he looked, I forget. Did he look more or less like Tom Holland after they changed him? They
in
changed
Miles
his face.
Morales, he looks, I think he definitely looks more like Tom Holland.
Okay, interesting. It's just funny to remember that there are all these different versions of the Marvel characters floating around.
Yeah, he does. He looks more like just a thoroughly forgettable kind of blonde guy now. So I was like, is that what he looked like in the first game? I had to look up, and this is how Google sort of came into it. I had to look up images of what Miles Morales, let me try that again, of what Peter Parker looked like in the first Spider-Man game. And no, it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looked like a young Nathan Drake.
Yeah, arguably so. But yes, yeah. I generally don't have a ton of Marvel stuff in my brain, so I feel a little blessed in that way. But apparently I'm reaching critical mass with Spider-Man because it's all kind of blurring together now.
I'm holding out for that Tobey Maguire DLC. Get him in there. Maybe Willem Dafoe. That's who
that
I
is my
think
association
as Peter Parker.
With Spider-Man is, yeah.
Either Tobey or like the 90s cartoon, which would also be amazing if they just look like that guy.
Yep. That's where the meme comes from of the Spider-Men kind of pointing at each other in the alley, right? Is that?
I think that might be from an older Spider-Man, I don't remember. It looks older than the 90s one. But,
okay.
I'm not completely sure where the meme actually comes from.
But anyways, yes, tons of Spider-Man content on the episode for you this week.
For me, just for me.
Just for DJ.
Okay, no, I love that you periodically get on the mic and talk to me about Marvel stuff. It's
I know
incredible.
Anything about superheroes at all. Yeah.
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 I mean, I'm not a Marvel expert by any means, but I've seen many of the Marvel movies. I've seen all the Spider-Man ones. Well, yeah, all the recent ones anyway. But I never played the game, so I like having a little Marvel check-in. Like, oh, what's Spider-Man up to these days? What's he doing when he's not on the big screen?
I'm maybe not the best authority on that, but
no, I appreciate your perspective on it, just because you aren't like a Marvel freak. So it's sort of like, what do the normies think Spider-Man is up to?
This is one of the few things in life I consider myself to be normie about. Yeah. Yeah, I sample. I'm very selective about what I consume from the world of Marvel. Yeah, and movies are a big undertaking, and there are a lot of hours, especially those Marvel movies. So there's just no way I can commit to seeing all of them. Nor am I interested, honestly, for that matter, of sitting through. How many Ant-Man movies are there now? 7, 12?
Oh, the Ant-Man movies are good, though. I mean, the second one is good. It's like one of the few Marvel movies where I go out of my way and tell people, like, oh, you should watch this one. If you like, don't watch any other Marvel movies, but watch Ant-Man 2. It's terrific.
Nothing about it looks appealing to me.
No, it's so good. It's Paul Rudd's in it.
I'm usually okay with Paul Rudd. I like a good Paul Rudd movie, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
You don't have to watch Ant-Man 1 to appreciate Ant-Man 2. You can just go straight in and then get straight out, because I didn't watch that third one. I don't know.
So you're selective about your Marvel consumption as well, then.
Well, I'm not so selective at this point as I am just like burnt out on the whole thing. Like after Endgame, where they sort of like put a pin on the first 10 years of the MCU, I'm just like, this is where I check out as well. I mean, I watched that new Spider-Man movie because it had all the Spider-Man in it. Spoiler. But after that, I'm like, I don't know if I need to just keep up with how the Avengers are doing. Sorry, Paul Rudd.
Well, and the good news is that Robert Downey Jr. now is free to do other things, to not be Iron Man.
I don't know. I'm kind of like checked out on Robert Downey Jr. also.
Yeah.
I mean, I like him.
Yeah.
He's
very
a
good in
actor.
Oppenheimer. He's quite good in Oppenheimer.
But I saw him on the bill or whatever on Oppenheimer, and I was like, oh god, it's him. He's just in another movie.
But like not being Tony Stark. So
right. I just we need a break. Robert and I are taking a break.
Oh, see, I felt like I've had a break because I've not consumed 25 years of Iron Man content. So
you don't have that problem.
Right. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Robert Downey Jr., quite a skilled actor.
Yeah. Like why hasn't he been in movies for the last 10 years?
Right. Well, why is nobody giving this guy work? Put him to work. but yeah. So yeah, it is an odd perspective that I sort of come to Spider-Man. Entirely fueled by the fact that, hey, that first game was surprisingly fun. Can I play more of that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that is this week.
Cool.
And you naturally, Armored Core 6 came out this week, so you're playing.
Yeah, played not the new Armored Core. I played one of those older ones.
Not even the previous Armored Core.
Not even the previous one. As I was putting like the stream together, because I streamed this on Friday, I discovered that they've released so many like Armored Core spin-offs that Armored Core 3 actually is Armored Core 6. It was the 6th Armored Core game to come out. So I kind of played Armored Core 6.
So the one that is called Armored Core 6 is probably like Armored Core
it's like
9?
Armored Core 12 or something. I don't
is
know
it like a factor of 3 every time?
I think there were like 3 Armored Core 1s and then 2 Armored Core 2s, and then I lost track. But they made quite a few of these spin-offs in between, like the full numbered versions.
Interesting.
They're like doing some work.
Like Persona games.
Kind of. Yeah. I feel like Persona didn't really get spin-off happy until Persona 5.
Yeah,
but now they're all about it.
A bajillion copies.
They're like, oh, we could have been just making more of these the whole time.
Yeah, it's weird that the only like spin-off that we were really getting served was dancing games for a long time. And then, Persona 5 hit, and suddenly it was like, what else can we put this in?
They made that Persona 4 fighting game, didn't they?
Oh, there was that as well. Correct, yeah.
I wonder if that would be more or less popular now if they made like a Persona 5 fighting game.
Just make a Persona everything fighting game, sort of a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put some Persona 3 characters in there. Put Elizabeth. Oh, I would play as Elizabeth. Elizabeth Main. And then I don't know any of the characters from Persona 1 and 2.
I don't either. But, yeah. Eventually, everything ends up in a fighting game.
Yeah, if not Smash Brothers, then maybe Mortal Kombat is your best bet.
That Warner Brothers thing with Scooby-Doo.
Yes, the, what is it? Multiverses?
Multiverses, yes, yeah.
Multiverses now featuring the cast of Persona 3.
So where to begin this week, DJ?
Well, I want to give the briefest of shout-outs to what else? Final Fantasy XIV celebrating its 10th anniversary this weekend.
Wow.
Incredible. I'm still wrapping my head around it. And that's all I'm going to mention, but I would feel remiss not saying anything about it.
Does that include the bungled launch? Isn't this the game that sort of came out, was despised, got retooled, and suddenly everybody...
This is 10 years since the relaunch. So 10 years of being good. The bad one was around for like 2010 it started, so it predates it by quite a few years. But no, it's just been, nowhere to go but up since then. So it's all been great. It's been mostly great.
I mean, that's what we strive for here every week on Video Game Hangover, is mostly great.
Mostly great, yeah. Well, what else can you do?
601 episodes of being mostly great.
Want to keep expectations, manageable, achievable.
Sure. A 7 on the IGN scale.
7's pretty good. Like,
7
should
bad.
be good, right?
Yeah. 7's really good. 7. Yeah, 7 is not, sending angry emails to the critic or blowing them up on Twitter. 7's a pretty good score.
Yeah, what you really don't want is an 8, because then you get the angry emails. It's like, okay, why wasn't this a 9 or a 10?
Because it's an 8.
But like 7, it's like, okay, well, fine, 7. We can accept that for some reason.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I've played a lot of games that probably have rated a 7, and I thought they were perfectly enjoyable.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would hazard a guess that most of my Xbox 360 PS3 consumption was 7s across the board.
Mostly 7s, yeah. That was a real 7 generation.
That was a good era for 7s, yeah, I think so. Yeah. The whole indie thing had not really kind of blown up.
Yeah.
Quite yet. So you were still getting like, not AAA, not AA, not really even in the A's. Development. You were getting studios making, I don't know, Dead to Rights games and things like that. And I'm like, this is a fine game. I'm a policeman. I have a dog and a gun. Graphics aren't that great, but it's fun. I'm cool. It's good. Let's do this.
Yeah. You put the disc in and stuff happens when you push buttons. So
yeah,
on some level, that's all you want out of a video game.
Yeah. When's the last time you put a disc in a video game console?
Oh, that might be a trick question. Have I done that recently? Maybe not. Oh, you got me.
Disc-based entertainment, DJ. Remember it?
Disc-based entertainment. I played something on my Wii U recently.
Oh.
What was it? I don't remember. It was it a Wii game? I don't know. No, I'd have to go to the tapes. I played Dragon Quest Swords a couple years ago for the Backlog. That was on the Wii. Worked on my Wii U. It was great.
Wow.
Since then, I couldn't tell you. I'm drawing a blank.
You're one of the few people I know who has successfully gone all digital.
I try to. Oh, I probably have like a Switch cart somewhere that I had to use. But not like, a DVD or a Blu-ray or anything. That's been a while. I don't think I own any PS4 discs.
Wow.
Like none.
That's pretty good.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's worked out well.
Does the
They're
PS5
just all on there.
play DVDs and CDs? Can I put a DVD in my PS5?
I couldn't tell you.
Your PS5 probably doesn't even have a slot, right?
No, it does.
You did get that one.
I wasn't even, here's the thing. I wasn't sure if I was that committed to being all digital that I would be okay with saying like, okay, I will 100% never need a disk drive.
No half measures, DJ. You're all in or none.
I was tempted. That was the direction I was leaning in, but you never know. But then, when I ended up getting my PS5, they only had the disc ones available. So I was just like, fine. I'll just give me that weird looking PS5 with like the bulge on one side that like clearly wasn't supposed to be there, but they needed to put a disc drive in there. It's fine. No PS5 discs either, though. I mean, barely any PS5 games, let's be honest.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. I have the Xbox that doesn't have a disc drive, and it's been fine. I don't find myself longing to play disc games anymore. Although I do have quite a few of them. I have a ton of 360 and Xbox One games, but nothing to play them on anymore.
Yeah, I've still got all my old PS3, Xbox generation discs that I kind of wish you could just like pop in and like have it register to your account. Like the what's his name? Don Matrick, the dream of the Xbox One. Just register all your discs to your account and throw them away. But that's not the future we got.
Oh, was that a thing? I didn't remember that. I don't remember that.
Wasn't that how it was supposed to work? It was like you buy the game, you put the disc in, and it's in your account, and then the disc is worthless from that point on.
Oh.
I think, that was how I understood it at one point, but they didn't do that.
Until GameStop caught wind of that and was like, nope, shut it down.
People got real mad.
Yeah. Well, onto the Backlog Attack.
Did you play a thing on a disc for the Backlog?
No, I played Miles Morales on my fancy PlayStation Plus tiered service. It's one of the bundle of games you get when you sign up for whatever tier I'm on. So, every Uncharted, every God of War.
Get the Uncharted tier. So how does this exist in relation to the Spider-Man game that came out? It's because it's not its own full game. It's like an expansion or something?
I don't think you need to have the first Spider-Man game to be able to play Miles Morales. It's its own standalone thing. But it's an abbreviated experience.
Okay.
Yeah. So the How Long to Beat says this is in the era in the window of 7 to 10 hours, where the first Spider-Man, I don't have the number off the top of my head, was a much bigger game. So it's a little snack, a little spider snack.
A little snack.
Yeah. Spidey snacks, is that a thing?
Yeah, he keeps those in his utility belt.
Exactly. So yeah, not a full blown open world epic, but it is still an open world game. It's just a little narrower in scope.
Okay, but it's like the same map from the first one.
It is identical. Yeah, absolutely. There's Miles lives in Harlem. And there's definitely a little more, I think, a little more effort to animate Harlem. You spend a little more time kind of in his neighborhood and walking around his family's apartment and stuff like that, to little shops and bodegas and things like that. So there's some, little local flavor that didn't, to my knowledge anyways, didn't exist in the first Spider-Man game that has been kind of built up. But the web slinging action of a Spider-Man game takes place across all of New York City. So yeah, you're all over the place in Miles Morales.
All right.
So yeah, it definitely sort of feels a little reheated, a little less ambitious. I Spider-Man 2 is supposed to come out later this year. I suspect that will probably feel, hopefully, a bit more like kind of a revelation than this does, but it very much feels like more of Spider-Man.
Does that, and not to get away from Miles Morales, but does Spider-Man 2 take place beyond, or was Spider-Man 1? Was it just Manhattan?
I think you went into the Bronx at some point.
Okay. But so do you know if they're expanding the map at all?
I don't know that. I'm not sure. Spider-Man is a New York City icon, right? I mean, he's
if you ask me, I'd be like, yeah. Well, why wouldn't it just be in New York? Because that's where Spider-Man lives. But it does feel like you need something extra,
right? Yeah, because people complain if you just reuse the same map over.
Yeah. Like maybe he goes to New Jersey or something.
Right, exactly. It's Spider-Man in London town. I don't know. I'm not sure. The funny thing is, the hook here is that in the first couple of minutes of the game, you have Spider-Man and the young Miles Morales, the aspiring Spider-Man 2.0, kind of apprenticing together, and they kind of take down as Spider-Man does, an escort of prisoners moving to a new compound or something like that, which of course goes awry. Prisoners escape, and Spider-Man have to work together to shut it down. Mm-hmm. And you get a little moment of the two of them sitting atop a building at the end, and Peter Parker Spider-Man says, "I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be out of town for a little while. Turning the keys over to you." So then you're just him for the rest of the game. You're just Miles Morales. So it's kind of fun in the beginning. The initial thing is basically two Spider-Men beating up an enemy together, and him giving you little pointers and basically walking you through the tutorial. But then from that point forward, it's a one-man show. It's just Miles for the rest until credits roll.
And is he just feeling overwhelmed the whole time? He's like, "Oh, I'm the only Spider-Man. What am I going to do?"
I remember thinking, is Spider-Man 2 kind of what happens when Peter Parker goes on vacation?
Does it comes back, has to clean it up?
Well, they just take place over the same timeline, maybe. Is meanwhile, in, I forget where he said he was going with who's Peter Parker's girlfriend?
Mary Jane.
There you go.
What's her name? Gwen Stacy, depending on
Kirsten
when
Dunst.
the game takes place. Kirsten Dunst.
So yeah, I was just thinking, if they go to London, because Mary Jane's on assignment, she's taking pictures. No, she's writing an article.
She's not a
and
photographer. Okay.
Peter Parker is taking pictures.
There you go.
I got it.
Peter Parker is modeling on the runway. They really mixed it up for this one.
He's shooting the new Dune movie. Oh, no, wait. That's a different teen icon.
That's not even... Yeah, it's a different guy.
But, no, I was wondering if the Spider-Man 2 takes place in England somewhere. I don't know if that's the case. I doubt it. It seems like...
I don't think it does. No, I don't think they went that far.
Yeah.
Well, that would be incredible.
But yeah, Miles is thoroughly overwhelmed. It gives you an opportunity, obviously, to sort of like reset. You reset all your powers, you reset all your abilities and upgrades, you reset all your suits. By the end of Spider-Man 1, I had a ton of different Spidey suits throughout history. Mm-hmm. All with a cool little sort of entry in the collection that explained kind of what comic book they first appeared in and who designed it and who the artist was and stuff. It was really neat. It was kind of a cool gallery of varying looks on Spider-Man over the years. But back to zero for Miles Morales, and you have to start collecting new costumes.
That's the
his
worst.
First one is like basketball shorts and a hoodie. It's real like, kind of basic, like Spider-Man, just kind of piecing it together in a lot of ways. He gets his first
night you have a Spider Powers costume.
Right. Yeah, probably. But yeah, definitely sort of upgrades significantly from there. There's some really cool powers that Miles has that kind of vanilla Spider-Man never had access to. The game calls them Venom abilities. I don't think it ties back to the Venom from Spider-Man, which means it's a weird choice to call it Venom abilities if you're not going to tie it back to the symbiote thing. But there's no ever really an explanation how that sort of comes up. But they're kind of like
they ran out of spider related terminology.
Right. Yeah. I guess spiders have venom. Yeah. I didn't make that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. Cause I really just thought it was like, the Venom movie that was also a Spider-Man thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, those are sort of like electrically charged. So those are upgraded over time too. And they're usually kind of big finishers. There's like a giant ground pound that he does that kind of zaps people and stuns them. There's a big finisher he can do where it's like, if you've got an enemy that has a armor on or something like that, or is defending in a really aggressive way, you can deploy this like limit break kind of thing that essentially
a limit break
gets through their armor and staggers them. So it's they're big hits in a lot of ways that you can do. You build up with doing kind of long combinations. But the standard combat is similar to Spider-Man. It's similar to all the Arkham Knight games. It's basically the Spidey sense. The little lines come out of Miles's head, and it means somebody's about to attack you. So you have to do a dodge to be able to get out of the way, and then quickly continue your combination of moves, your combo. That's what the kids call it. But yeah, it feels sloppy. There's definitely sort of like an additional layer of motion capture that has happened here to sort of, show a teenager still trying to get a feel for combat, still show somebody like when he's web slinging and flying all over the city. He doesn't fly. He swings all over the city. He's certainly less graceful than Peter Parker was. There's a lot of kind of, arms and legs flailing, and he does a little like, if you don't quite get him quite right off the jump, he does a little correction to sort of like rebalance himself and center himself. But he's not as graceful as Peter Parker was, which makes sense. He's new to this. He's still figuring it out.
Yeah. That's interesting that they managed to incorporate that throughout. That's kind of a cool touch.
Yeah. So, there's certainly parts of the game that feel like, this is, more of Spider-Man. This is sort of reused assets and reused map and stuff like that. It definitely effort was put into, giving Miles a cool story and giving him his own corner of New York City and certainly giving him his own moves and skill trees and fun stuff like that. They don't feel like kind of repeats of what Peter Parker went through. You get a cool balance between, and this is, I think, a Spider-Man kind of hallmark at this point, where you have sort of the balance between kind of the teen 20-something Peter Parker or Miles Morales in this case, and sort of his secret life as a Spider-Man. So you actually get to spend Christmas in New York City with Miles and his family and stuff like that, and put on a sweater and just be a teenager opening presents and stuff. And that's kind of fun and cute. You really sort of explore his family's apartment. They just moved into a new place, and so they're kind of unpacking. So there's all these little trinkets and icons and little things that tie back to the previous game or, Miles's life and family and stuff. So again, not just like printing out Spider-Man games. It does feel curated and dialed into telling a very specific story about Miles Morales and his family and experience. So it's cool. It's nice. It's it does push all the buttons that I liked from the previous Spider-Man game. As soon as I started swinging around the city and jumping off of tall buildings and things like that, I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. I know all the right buttons already. As soon as combat came, I'm like, I know how to dodge. I know how to like slide under a guy's legs and punch him in the back of the head because I did it a billion times in the first game. So all of those things still kind of work and feel very comfortable, and they're still super fun. The stealth stuff I love, being in a construction yard and the girders above, or swinging to the top of a building and then doing a drop down, like knockout of some dude and then webbing him up and hanging him from the rafters so that his friends don't notice he's missing, is super satisfying and still remains kind of a cool way to like thin the herd a little bit before you just, drop to the ground and start beating people up.
That sounds like it's pretty much straight up the Batman game at that point.
Oh, it's totally, yes. Which is my favorite part of the Arkham games too. So, it all still works. These things all kind of still steal from each other. But I think they're doing it in a way that still feels very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good fit for a Spider-Man.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how much of Spider-Man's thing is stealth, but they definitely sort of steer Miles into that. He gets I don't know if this qualifies as a spoiler, so block your ears if you're sensitive to a suit upgrade discussion. One of the upgrades he gets at some point allows him to be invisible for a quick second. And you can use that to kind of sneak around and get behind enemies. And you use that kind of during some stealth sequences to be able to, get into places you wouldn't otherwise be able to get into if you were a teenager. So it's kind of fun. And again, it sort of feels like Miles's thing rather than it just being a rehash of Peter's thing.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to like stay out of sight most of the time just by like climbing on the ceiling and crawling through the rafters and all that stuff, or do you actually just need to be invisible?
Quite a lot. Yeah, I think it definitely does sort of the thing where you have the patrol routes of the guards and they have little sensitivity warnings above their head where they'll be like searching for a second because they think they saw something, and if the little like question mark circle over their head fills up, they'll spot you. So you have to get back into the shadows or flip your way over to another girder or something and get out of the way real quick. You can tag enemies too, which I don't remember being able to do in the first Spider-Man game. So if you can get to a place where you have kind of a height advantage, which again, it's New York City, so everything is vertical. You have height everywhere, so it helps if you're a spider. But you can kind of point essentially to enemies, and it'll sort of like log their patrol route for you, so you can plot your way around the compound or the construction yard or whatever, and figure out how to best sort of take down guards who might be teamed up and things like that. So it's it sort of feels like it fits, I think, in a way that is very video gamey, obviously, but still very satisfying when you make it work.
Yeah. It's interesting how many of these mechanics I'm just like, oh, this is more or less directly lifted from this other video game, but they still feel like, oh, well, yeah, this is naturally something Spider-Man would do, so of course he would just do this.
Yeah, and there's technology and stuff too, so you do have little spider bots and drones and things like that you can use to spot enemies and scout ahead, and all that stuff sort of feels like it's kind of very tuned to Miles Morales' kind of approach to it. His best buddy is a techie named Genki, and he's a tinkerer and a nerd, and he builds a little app where people can call for Spider-Man's help, and you use that to do kind of random encounters around the city. You can listen to podcasts while you're swinging around town, and Genki curates those, and you can listen to J. Jonah Jameson is a kind of a blowhard political righty, and his podcast will pop up sometimes, and they'll make a snarky comment about him. And there's other people that have their own podcasts and shows that you can listen to while you're moving from point to point. So it's cool. It feels, it feels assembled to the kind of mentality and worldview of a city life teenager. So I think they did a really, really nice job of, again, sort of making it hit all the buttons that you would want to hit for a Spider-Man game, but very much making it a Miles Morales thing versus just more Peter Parker.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, like, are you just ready to go back to Peter Parker by the end of this? But I think, don't you play as both of them in Spider-Man 2?
I would assume so. I know very little about Spider-Man 2.
Okay. I don't really know any. I mean, that's why I'm asking all these questions.
Yeah, I was searching over the weekend. I was like, oh, that comes out this year. That's not that far away. So I did not even have it on my release radar for this Christmas. But that's, it's a holiday 23 release.
It's like same day as everything else. It's like Super Mario, Alan Wake, all those other things.
Oh, really?
I think all in the same vicinity.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily need two of these back to back. Miles Morales came out fairly quickly after the first Spider-Man game. And I didn't play it right away. It's clearly been out for a couple of years at this point. I think it came out, winter of 2020. So it's been 3 years since I've played, since Miles Morales came out until I played it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I, in a week where Super Mario Wonder and Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2 all come out, I probably would play Spider-Man last. Not because I suspect it to be a bad game, but just, I think to a degree I know what I'm getting. Yeah. I think, it'll still be entertaining in a couple of years when I get around to it.
That's sort of the impression I've gotten from a lot of people talking about Spider-Man 2. Like, they're looking forward to it, but they kind of understand exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a problem if you also want a Spider-Man 3 someday. But, if not enough people kind of get on board in the beginning, I don't know if that bodes well for continued sequels, but it does seem like...
They're going to make a Spider-Man 3? That's a lot of Spider-Man games.
Yeah.
Are they making a Wolverine game?
That I certainly don't know.
I thought that was their next thing.
I know Wolverine is in the new Deadpool movie. I know that.
Ah, yes, he's back.
Yeah. I keep getting like Google alerts for Hugh Jackman back in the gym, getting ready for Deadpool 3.
We have Google alerts for Hugh Jackman.
I mean, I don't, but apparently at some point in my past, I Googled Deadpool, and that's what I get.
Okay, you get the Deadpool alerts, and so now it's just okay. I got it.
I don't mind those Deadpool movies; those are entertaining. I've seen those.
Yeah, those are movies.
they are. I can confirm that. Yes. But Insomniac, I think, gets it. They understand the assignment. They know what they're doing. It's my understanding that there was not a great legacy of Spider-Man games prior to this series. Is that accurate? Does that sound
there were
like
some,
a thing?
I mean, it's been up and down. I think those PS2 ones are like really popular. Those were sort of the gold standard for a while. And then I haven't played a Spider-Man game since the PlayStation 1, so I couldn't tell you what he's been up to since then. But I always hear people say like, oh, why don't they just make those PS2 ones again? And it sounds like this is the closest they've gotten, or maybe they've even surpassed them at this point with these Insomniac ones. But I don't think he was in a great spot for a while.
So cool. I mean, they're a very, very good video game developer and are quite storied and have been doing this for a long time. So it's cool that they've latched on to a Marvel property that they can kind of do something fun with and sell 1 billion copies and hopefully fuel more, Insomniac games.
Yeah. So what should they do instead of Spider-Man 3? Like, should it be another Marvel character? I think they're doing the Wolverine game, right? But like, who else? I feel like there hasn't been an X-Men game in a while.
They're doing the Wolverine game, yeah.
Yeah.
That is Insomniac. I don't know. I mean, I would always take more Ratchet & Clank games. I'm fine with that. But, I don't know.
Maybe they can finally make a good Superman game. Maybe they could do that. They've already got kind of the New York map. Just, reuse that. I don't know how much crossover there is between Marvel and DC fans, so maybe nobody would notice.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played a Superman game.
I played a little bit of the one that was like on the 360. Before that, it was bleak. Like, there was Superman 64, just infamously bad. And then you had a bunch of, like, retro arcade games. But I've never really been blown away by any of them. I feel like it's just difficult to make a Superman game that is satisfying to play. And also sort of makes you feel like you are Superman.
I mean, you are by nature completely overpowered, right? So,
right, yeah, it's tough. The best Superman comics are not just him like beating people up for the entire run. It's there's just more to the character going on. It's hard to do in a video game, I imagine.
To press X to dodge when somebody throws a gun at you, though.
Yeah, it's like press X to debate Lex Luthor for 60 hours.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much that appeals to me. I think the current state of DC, certainly not an expert on these things, is a little dubious, obviously. So I'm not sure where they're going with DC video games in the future. I mean, even the last kind of Arkham game was not well received, and I don't think did very well. So,
is that the co-op one?
Yeah, the Arkham Knights.
People don't like that one.
I didn't hear great things about it. I was excited about it when it first came out, and the reviews kind of day one were middling. So I'm like, I'll get to it eventually.
I feel like the Arkham thing ran its course long ago.
Yeah, it was getting a little goofy.
Yeah.
They're all satisfying though. I've played all three of those. Well, there's four, I guess. I've played three.
How many of them are there?
Three of the four Arkham games, and I had fun with all of them, despite it that getting, of course, a little long in the tooth eventually. But yeah, I mean, the limitation I think is similar with Spider-Man is that eventually, you kind of run out of Spider-Man things to do. And while Batman can always be kind of the world's greatest detective for a little while, at some point you have to get in the Batmobile and beat up guys, right? So
gotta launch those missiles.
Yeah. So I mean, Spider-Man has the same limitation. I'm not subject to the nostalgia of a Spider-Man thing where you have to, Batman falls victim to this too, where you sort of fill it with all of the oddball characters and the weird rogues gallery. And, the people who have read a million copies of the comic book go, hey, is that guy? Oh, it's that guy. I don't have that to draw from, so it doesn't really mean anything to me. I spent most of the first Spider-Man wondering, did they make this up for the game, or is this like a cool comic booky thing that I should know? And I'm not doing any better in the second game. So, yeah, I don't, unless it's Doc Ock, I don't really think I know much about Spider-Man's collection of villains.
Do you do any photography as Peter Parker? I don't know if that's Miles's thing. I don't know what his thing is really. But did they incorporate that at all into the first one?
I don't recall. If it was
that
there, it
seems
wasn't memorable. It's been
they must have done something like that. I was not Spider-Man. Batman does his detective stuff.
Right.
But then I was like, what is this Peter Parker doing? Oh, he's just taking pictures of stuff.
It might have been there. I just don't remember, maybe. But I mean, it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
6 years ago. And that I did play upon release. I played that the day it came out. So yeah, maybe it just wasn't memorable enough for me to be able to recall it this many years later.
You weren't interested in that side quest?
Oh no, I did everything in the first Spider-Man game. I believe I was 100% at that game.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yep. All the little collectibles, they're all back, so you have to collect them again. Just little beacons and stuff, little backpacks, drops around the city that you have to find. Miles's thing is sort of dropping beats. So there's, a fun music element to some of that stuff. There's Peter has left you VR challenges around the city where you get to beat up holograms of villains and learn cool new moves and stuff like that. So you have to find those around the city. So it's, it is again, the open world game collectathon, specifically tuned to Miles Morales. But it's good. It's satisfying. It's, I find myself wanting to do them. There is a collection of tech drops that you can find that allow you to upgrade little powers and tech abilities that Miles has. And as soon as I unlocked the first one, the map started lighting up with new ones. And I'm like, let's just do all of these. Let's do a little detour and find all the cool techie upgrades so I can do all of that stuff. So they're good. I like this. It's definitely, it's fairly low effort. I don't play it on hard by any stretch. I get nice long combos going because the enemies basically move at a snail's pace and wait for me politely to beat them up. But it's good. It's satisfying. It's super acrobatic. You feel like a badass when you pull off a long string and just take down a bunch of dudes in one shot. It's kind of everything I would want from a Spider-Man. It's anything I would want from, a superhero game in general.
Cool. Yeah, sounds like they did a pretty good job with it.
I have very few complaints.
What are your complaints?
I'm none that come to mind, honestly. I really think it's fine.
The perfect video game. They finally cracked it.
They did it. They found exactly, the thing.
Wow. Well, all right. I'm taking notes. So, black protagonist takes place in New York City, 7 hours long, has electricity powers. Don't know where I'm going with this. This is just, trying to find more video games that meet the criteria.
Find a way to somehow put all of that into Animal Crossing.
Yeah, right. I was like, and of course it has the whole like Assassin's Creed / Arkham combat system.
Right. Yep.
So,
cool.
So yeah. Did you get through the whole thing, or are you still working on it?
No, I think I'm in the home stretch. My little detours and collectathons, I think, have padded my runtime. But I think I'm approaching the end. Yeah, put quite a few hours into it over the weekend. So
cool.
Unless something goes seriously sideways in the final couple hours, I think I can confidently say this is a fun game. And if you like Spider-Man, you'd probably enjoy the hell out of this.
You have to replay the entire game as Green Spider-Man.
Oh no. Is there a Green Spider-Man? Is that a thing?
Oh, it probably was at one point. I was just, they drag out Luigi and make you play through all the Mario levels again.
I like when the game does that. I think that's fun.
Yeah. Well, so you have that to look forward to.
Cool. Sign me up.
Oh man. So
yeah,
like we were saying, I play a little Armored Core. Not that Armored Core, but one of the older ones. One of the ones I was told if you haven't played a previous Armored Core, which is, that's me, that this is one of the ones to start with. So I played Armored Core 3, which is a PlayStation 2 game from 2002. And the reason it's so confusing about where to start with Armored Core games is that they tend to just reboot themselves every few entries, or at least that's my understanding. So there were a bunch of PS1 games, and I think Armored Core 2 was like a PS2 launch game. And then there were a couple of versions of that, and then Armored Core 3 comes out. And apparently this is sort of the gold standard. So I thought, well, that's accessible enough, I guess. I'm a little nervous about going all the way back to a From Software game on the PlayStation 1. So maybe that's a thing for another day. But this seemed fine. Like, I like PS2 games. I like giant robots, supposedly. And I'm really curious about this. I've always been kind of curious about Armored Core, and it's sort of just increased a little bit with the new one that just came out. So finally wanted to dive in and see what an Armored Core game is about beyond just driving a giant robot around.
So it's unusual that you would jump into a series at 3. You typically are pretty adamant about kind of starting from scratch. Is it because the Armored Core games kind of reboot themselves periodically that you felt you could slot in at 3?
Partially that. This also because this was specifically recommended, and also I feel like going back to Armored Core 1 would just be a total slog and just be impenetrable and probably not enjoyable, because I also just have a hard time with FromSoft games in general. FromSoft games from the PS1 era especially, I don't think I played any, but they don't have the greatest reputation. But that is a conversation for another time. As you might expect from a giant robot game, this takes place in a post-apocalyptic version of, I think, Earth, where there's been a nuclear holocaust, so humanity is living underground. And the only sort of world powers left are these giant corporations that are like kind of at war with each other. They're just, they're doing the giant post-apocalyptic corporation thing and trying to, monopolize all the resources for themselves. You know how it is. So you play as...
That sounds familiar, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You play as a newly recruited member of, I guess, like a PMC, like a private military contractor, who, like, you just completed your qualification mission. You've been given the title of Raven and your own Armored Core mech. and now you're eligible to do missions for these corporations. And that is basically the structure of the game. You just like log into your computer and see, like you read your email, maybe you take a look at your Armored Core in the Armored Core garage, and then you just see what missions are on the mission board for the day. And it plays very much like you would imagine sort of a mission-based PS2 mech game to play. You just pick a mission and you get a little briefing on it, and then you go out and you execute. And that varies from doing things like, some missions will just have you destroy all the enemy targets on the map. And there are some where you need to like defend a specific installation, or this sort of ridiculous one where there was can you believe this? There was a bus that was speeding down the highway that was out of control and it couldn't slow down. So you needed to just destroy all the debris in front of it so it wouldn't explode.
That's the Keanu Reeves mode.
Yeah, might have been on there. So you just do all these missions, and it's fairly standard mission structure. Like after the end of the mission, you get your reward, which you funnel back into your Armored Core. You go to the shop and buy new parts for it, and purchase upgrades, and pay repair bills for all the damage you sustained during the mission. So that was very sort of like unsurprising. It was pretty much exactly how I expected it to go. As far as the actual mech gameplay goes, you have you can hold a couple weapons, and that's sort of up to your preference what those end up being. There's like a lot of customization in this, as I think you would sort of hope a mech game to have. Like you can pick between like machine guns or shotguns or sniper rifles, and then there are sort of traditional like what do they call it? Like solid round shooting versions of these versus energy versions. Which I'm just sort of starting to learn the nuances of, because I had a hard time affording anything in the shop, so I was sort of forced to window shop a little bit and just be like, okay, let's see what's the cheapest laser weapon I can afford, because I think that would be cool, but I can't really buy any of the nice ones. There are like all these shoulder attachments, which range from like rocket launchers or radar jammers, a lot of interesting variety, and like a lot of stuff that isn't just another weapon that you equip. So a lot of them have these support features as well, which I thought was kind of cool.
Oh, neat.
And then finally, and this is the most exciting part for me, you can customize all the different like pieces of your mech as well as the weapon systems. So you can put on like a weird looking pair of arms, and a lot of that is sort of like helps them carry more weight and like haul more equipment and everything. But then where it gets really interesting is you can select the types of leg modules they have. So you start out with like basic sort of humanoid bipedal legs, and then you can get like the reverse jointed legs, which are sort of like bird legs or velociraptor legs or something, which let you move faster, but you can't carry as much equipment. And then you get into the really weird stuff like the quadruped mechs, and then the tank treaded mechs, and all that sort of good stuff, which unfortunately I just could not afford, but I'm really looking forward to like, oh man, someday I want to build like this really awesome hovercraft mech, and that'll be great. And it'll have a bunch of laser rifles, and it'll just be terrific, but everything's so expensive.
You could not find a infinite cash cheat code or something like that for this ancient game?
So I didn't want to jump immediately to cheat codes, although I was tempted. I was just like, okay, just unlock everything in the shop for me, please. Because I could see myself getting really lost in sort of the mech customization. In fact, like as I was playing this on the stream on Friday, I was going over the mech pieces in the store that I could afford, and I started doing like making a rudimentary list of like, okay, so how's this gun compared to the gun that I currently have? And unfortunately, because it's like an older game, it doesn't have a great sort of interface that lets you compare all the weapons and equipment in the game, or at least not one that I could find.
Oh.
So I just started writing stuff down on a piece of paper, and I was just like, okay, this is 10 minutes away from me just opening up a spreadsheet on stream, and I don't know how interesting that is going to be, so maybe I'll save this for later, so when I actually can afford stuff in the shop, I'll come back to it and build my ultimate mech. But money is kind of an issue, and I feel like it's for a couple reasons. One is because you just straight up, you don't get paid that much. The missions I was doing they were advertised as having like a maybe 10,000 credit payout, and a lot of the initial parts are like maybe 60 or 70,000 credits, like at least the ones that I had my eye on. So it sounds like you should just be able to do a couple missions, or not a couple, but like, 5 or 6, and then you have enough to buy a new nice part for your mech. But the thing is, you get stuck with a repair bill after every mission. Plus, you also have to pay to reload all the ammunition you used. And that ends up eating a significant chunk of whatever fee you are going to earn. So I ended up just not having a lot of money a lot of the time, because it would all just go back into my robot and buying new ammunition for it. In fact, I found out that one of the big advantages of using an energy weapon is you don't have to buy bullets for it. So that can save you significantly if you, end up using those more than the traditional sort of like bullet firing weapons.
Oh.
But
so what's the limitation? Is they have to charge up or something, I assume, right?
Good call. They use a chunk of your sort of heat gauge. So if you fire it too often, your mech overheats and then you're kind of screwed for a little bit. So it's a lot of interesting sort of trade-offs. Like, do you want a bullet gun that's very expensive to use? Do you want an energy weapon that maybe you have to use more conservatively, but it has all these other advantages and disadvantages? So you can see how somebody could get really into like customizing their mech that works really well for their playstyle. In fact, I hear a lot of like a lot of the stories around this game is you spend more time in the garage customizing the mech than you actually do running missions. And I didn't take that as like a slight against the game. I actually thought, well, that, if they can make that interesting and compelling enough, then that's awesome. Just like give me a cool mech to customize. And when I take it out on the battlefield and it's just, performing exactly how I want it to, and, it's got my ideal loadout and everything, then that sounds like a lot of fun. So up to this point, all the mech customization and stuff and sort of the mech gameplay has been more or less what I expected from a mech game. But what I was not expecting is just how dystopian the sort of storyline and presentation is. Because, like I said, it basically revolves around these 3 corporations that are fighting for like whatever is left of the Earth. And as this PMC member, you're just a mercenary who gets hired out to all 3 of the corporations, and they just fight each other. So like one mission, you're fighting against one corporation, and then immediately you'll get hired by the one you were just fighting, and then go kill the other guys. So that's very like kind of dark. And then when you actually get the mission briefings, a lot of the time it's like the corporation telling you like, oh, our workers in one of our factories are revolting, so go kill all of them because we can't have that. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, are you paying me for this? Then whatever. So I need to buy those upgrades for my robot, so I guess I'll go do that.
You cannot in good conscience complete this mission. So
no, there's no conscientious objection option.
No.
That might just be you stay on the menu screen and read your email forever and you don't actually take on any missions.
Dream about upgrading the mech with the money you don't have.
Yeah. My absolute favorite mission was, so one of the corporations contacted me and they wanted me to destroy this monorail bridge. And they wanted me to make it look like one of the other corporations did it. So I was kind of framing them. So that's already incredibly sketchy. And then they just added on, so almost as a postscript in the mission briefing, like, oh, since we want this to reflect badly on one of the other corporations, just like if you could maybe kill some civilians while you're at it, like if you see the monorail, just take that thing out. If it goes by, then that's great. We'll give you a bonus for it if you do that. So it's like, oh, all right. I could remember any game that I've played recently where you're just this much of like an apathetic, sort of like almost villainous character. But it was kind of incredible because like that's the whole scenario in the game where it's just like everything has gone to hell and is run by these corporations. Like the actual government is run by an AI. So why not destroy a monorail? Why, like, you're just trying to get paid so you can, stay in your mech for another mission or 2. Apparently it's a whole story that unfolds where you get to the bottom of some of the stuff that's going on with the central government, and I imagine the corporate intrigue. There are other factions that pop up to challenge like the government and the corporations, but I did not make it that far.
But, late stage capitalism.
Yes, it's very late. As like it was kind of shocking the first couple of times where they were just like, "Hey, like get our factory back, but also eliminate anybody who is still inside." To like leading up to the monorail mission, where I just thought, okay, well, might as well just go all in on this. Let's see what other kind of like horrors they can come up with, as long as they've got a paycheck attached. It was like I don't really know how intentional, like intentionally, like sort of dark it was, but I was getting into the kind of just the absurdity of it after running enough of these missions, where I'm just like, yeah, you might as well. Why not make a game where you're just the worst person, as long as you're in a giant robot? Like, that's cool.
Right, yeah. As long as you can keep gas in the car, you're good.
Yeah, so that is something I did not know about this series. I don't know if all of the games are like that. I especially don't know how like the story in the new one works. But yeah, maybe you are just this sort of impartial mercenary in all of them. You're just doing terrible things to earn a living.
For money.
Yeah, well.
Credits.
It's the future. What else are you going to do?
Right.
So I think I had a pretty good time with it.
Okay, that's my sort of closing question. I'm having trouble figuring out whether or not you enjoyed this or not.
Yeah, it was definitely clunky, and I think, like, unfortunately, I don't see myself continuing to play a whole lot of it, just because, like, the controls are quite difficult to deal with, which made some of the more technical, like, mech battles, like, especially when you get into dueling with other Armored Core units, it gets quite demanding, and I wasn't able to keep up on the 2002 era controls. I've tried several sort of recommended control remappings, which had different degrees of success. But at this point, I feel like I'm more tempted to like put this aside maybe and look for another mech game, or maybe at some point I'll try the new one. I'm not totally sure about that either. But it was cool just coming to get it to play an Armored Core game finally and just sort of see what it's all about.
Do you think this inspires you to want to play more modern, maybe slightly more approachable Armored Core games, or is this enough for you?
I'm really curious about Armored Core 4, like the 4 series, because those were also directed by what's his name, Hidetaka Miyazaki, who did most of the more recent From Software games.
Ah.
But those are the ones I mentioned this like when we did our backlog kickoff, that they're described as mechs as fighter jets, which I think sounds like the coolest thing. So I really want to see what those are about. Well, I think it's more like sort of high speed action game, like doing like fighter jet style maneuvers. From what I played of Armored Core 3, it was fairly clunky. Like you had like rocket boosts and that sort of stuff, but for the most part, you were just sort of trudging along on the ground. But I'm very curious about that. Those are not easy to get your hands on these days, unfortunately. Yeah. So I don't know how to make that happen. I haven't really looked into Armored Core 5. Armored Core 6 would probably be the easiest one to check out at this point. But to me, it looks like it has a lot of the sort of traditional mech stuff, but it also has big, what sound like Souls-like bosses, which I don't really care for. So I've heard it's like quite uneven, actually. So you're like doing a bunch of cool mech sort of Armored Core stuff, and then you just fight a big Dark Souls boss. And I'm like, I don't know about that. So I probably will not check that out right away.
At some point, all From Software games just sort of converge into
yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've heard that in many ways it's much more like the older Armored Core games than it is like Elden Ring or like Bloodborne. But I can't imagine they would make a game these days that does not like carry over at least some of sort of the Dark Souls design philosophies. So it may have a lot more in common with Armored Core, but like, yeah, if you say there are Souls bosses in there, then I'm like, yeah, well, of course there are. So anyway, we'll probably not be immediately jumping over to Armored Core 6, maybe someday. But, it also just came out, so I'm kind of waiting to see what people think of it maybe a few weeks from now.
Cool.
It does look very cool. I really like the idea of just flying a mech around, putting some weird hover legs on it. Sounds good.
Yeah, this is not something that would generally be on my my radar, but because I knew you were playing Armored Core 3, I started to sort of pay a little more attention to, like, on Twitter and stuff when people mention Armored Core or Armored Core 6 specifically over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it definitely is one of those things that, like, I just didn't have a sense of how big the fan base or the phenomena was, but people are very excited about the new game.
Yeah, I think there are definitely more people excited about the new one because there's been, people are such huge fans of, like, the Souls series and especially Elden Ring lately.
Sure, Elden Ring's a big deal.
I don't think Armored Core has traditionally been, like, a huge series, although, as you can imagine, the people who are Armored Core fans are, like, really, really into it. So maybe they're just very vocal.
Well, cool. So that just about wraps up week 3 for us. We are heading into our final week next week. I will be tackling the very first Dragon Quest game.
Yes.
Yeah. And where do you go from here, DJ?
Oh, next week's an easy one. I'm just playing Super Mario Brothers.
Nice.
New Super Mario Brothers U specifically. Should be super chill, I'm hoping. And once again, I'll be streaming it this Friday evening. It'll be a nice break after getting blown up so many times in Armored Core.
Certainly a little less dystopian.
Yes, although who knows? It's been a while since I played one of these new Super Mario Brothers games, so maybe they go very surprising places with it.
Cool. There's still a little bit of time if you want to jump into the Discord and talk about some of your backlog attack games from this summer with me and DJ and the rest of the Video Game Hangover community. You can go to VGHangover.com to get a link to that. What is happening in the community? What have some of our friends and fam been playing out of the backlog there?
We have some good updates this week. We have Peters, who has switched over to actual video games at this point. He's finished. So he's playing the Quintet trilogy.
He was doing movies, right? Didn't he have a movie backlog attack last year?
He was doing movies for a while. But I don't know if you've heard of... So there are these 3 Super Nintendo games, all by the same developer. And he's playing through those, which, like, I'm a huge fan of those. He started with Soul Blazer. He says it was awesome. And then moving on to Illusion of Gaia, which is, I think, much better known than Soul Blazer. I think probably a lot of people have actually played that one. And then I assume finishing up with Terra Enigma, which I confess I've never played more than a couple hours of. So maybe that's something for my backlog next time. You might actually enjoy some of those. Maybe Illusion of Gaia. It's very Zelda-like, actually. It's that sort of action game.
Never heard of it.
Really interesting story. Illusion of Gaia especially kind of cool because you go to a lot of real-world landmark. Like you go to the Nazca lines and Angkor Wat and a bunch of other kind of less visited places from video games.
Oh, neat.
So that's cool. I'm excited that somebody's got the Quintet trilogy on their list. Russ Greeno says he finished Quake. That's Quake 1.
Nice.
That's cool. And finished Resident Evil Revelations 2. Despite, he says it was a bit of a slog. And then finally, my favorite new weekly segment is Eshin. What is he doing in Final Fantasy XI? Just casually knocking out, he switched to Dark Knight for his job. And just kind of casually leveled it up to the maximum level so he could get back to whatever he was doing, which I had a lot of questions about.
I want to shout out to GD Milkman, who came to the defense of Resident Evil 5 and 6 on Discord last week. He says, "Are they good Resident Evil games? Ha, no. Are they stupid and wildly offensive at times? Oh, yes. What do they do well? One thing, they are great co-op shooters with some level and enemy design that works well with 2 players in a way that few other shooters do. So his advice is skip the story and play with a friend." Which is exactly how I consumed Resident Evil 5 and 6. There's just no way I probably would have ever gotten through those games if I did not have a co-op partner kind of dragging me across the finish line. Plus I need somebody to use all their green herbs on me.
I don't don't know if I'd say that's coming to defense of those games, but whatever helps you get through them.
Sure. I mean, clearly, GD Milkman has found a place for them in the way that he consumes video games. So,
sure. I know there's definitely a place. There's definitely a time and place to play Resident Evil 5 and 6.
Yeah. It is. It's exactly sort of how I explain Borderlands or Gears of War. I think those games are best with buddies, and I have very little interest in playing them by myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I would put either of those games above. Like, I think those are better games than either Resident Evil 5 or 6.
Oh, I would agree with that too. Absolutely. In defense of Borderlands or Gears of War, yes, I think they're better than Resident Evil 5 or 6. But from a co-op perspective, I think all of them are very well tuned to you and a friend playing a game together experience.
Oh yeah, well, I've always found it amazing how much what types of games people are willing to tolerate if it is in a co-op environment.
Sure.
But no, there's definitely something to be said about that. Anyway, those are all the updates from this week.
Yeah.
As we head into the final week of the attack here.
Cool. We should wrap this thing up here then so we can go play some old video games. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. That's what it is, twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. Join our aforementioned Discord. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com. And we would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice. And maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. It helps us get the word out and bring in new listeners. So that would be great if you could just tell one or two or 500 of your closest friends. Tell whoever you're playing co-op with in Resident Evil 6, like, hey, there's a podcast you can check out. We would like to give thanks again to Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, you can go to fearofdark.bandcamp.com. I believe it's Bandcamp Friday this week, September 1st. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
So go for it. This is the week. Just add everything into your cart and hit checkout. Just do it before midnight. Don't be like me and forget to wait another month.
Excellent. Good tip. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Maybe next week DJ will tell us everything he bought on Bandcamp Friday.
Ooh.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.